Hey YouTube, it's Penny. Happy Shavuot, Feast of Weeks, Pentecost, as it's known in the Christian Church. Today is May 19th, and there is some discrepancy, depending on who you talk to, in terms of trying to determine when the actual Feast of Shavuot is. And that's something I've been asking the Father to show me. I'm going to bring you some scriptures, including from the book of Jubilees. And as a sidebar, many of you know that I recommend 119 Ministries and their teachings. And recently they came out with a teaching where they were saying basically that they couldn't recommend the book of Jubilees. And I love the fact that they say test everything. And I have, and to the best of my understanding, Jubilees is a worthwhile book, which is why I believe the Father chose to preserve it in Cave 4 in Qumran among the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it's one of the reasons that we at Sefer Publishing Group have chosen to restore it and include it in the Sefer, which is the version of the scriptures that I'll be reading to you from. This is interesting. Came across this recently in Jubilees chapter 6, starting in verse 35. It says, "For I know, and from henceforth I will declare it unto you, and it is not of my own devising, for the Sefer," and that word means book, writing, scroll, letter, "lies written before me, and on the heavenly tablets the division of days is ordained, lest they forget the feasts of the covenant and walk according to the feasts of the other people," which is translated Gentiles in most English versions of the scriptures, meaning the people other than those of the covenant. Okay, so walk according to the feasts of the other people after their error and after their ignorance. For there will be those who assuredly make observations of the moon, how it disturbs the seasons and comes in from year to year 10 days too soon. For this reason, the years will come upon them when they will disturb the order and make an abominable day, the day of testimony, and an unclean day, a feast day. And they will confound all the days, the holy with the unclean, and the unclean day with the holy, for they will go wrong as to the months of the Sabbaths and the feasts and Jubilees. For this reason I command and testify to you, that you may testify to them, for after your death your children will disturb them. This is talking to Noah. So that they will not make the year 364 days only, and for this reason they will go wrong as to the new moons and the seasons and the Sabbaths and the feasts. Okay, so I was kind of relieved that this was actually prophesied way back, that this was going to happen, that there would be discrepancy and that we would kind of lose track of the days. So Leviticus 23:15 says, "And ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that ye brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath ye shall number 50 days, and ye shall offer a new meat offering unto Yahuah." Okay, so we all know that Pesach is clearly the 14th day of the first month. So it's saying that you're supposed to start counting on the morrow after the Sabbath. So the Feast of Unleavened Bread begins the day after, so the 15th, and goes for 7 days, right? So within that time frame, within that week, there's always going to be a regular 7th day Shabbat or Sabbath day. And that's when you start counting the Omer. You don't start counting the Omer on the first day after Pesach or Passover. You start counting it on the first day of the morrow after the regular Sabbath that falls within the Feast of Unleavened Bread. That's what I believe. So I could be wrong. That's my story for now, and I'm sticking to it. So if that's the case, then that would bring us this year to the 19th of May. Rather than, I think a lot of people celebrated it like on Wednesday because they started counting the day after on the first day of unleavened bread. Okay, so as I was, I mean, not about you, but I'm like, well, how do we celebrate or observe the Feast of Weeks, Shavuot, in the diaspora, which is what we're in now, and what does it mean? What's this a sign of? So we all know that in Exodus 19 and in Jubilees 1 and even in Jasher 82, it all talks about the giving of the Torah, which is the instructions, the word, the law, or the truth, happen on the Feast of Shavuot, as well as the giving of the Ruach, the Spirit, happened on Shavuot. And I thought maybe that was all there was to it, was the giving of the Word and the Spirit. But there's more. Okay, so backing up. So in Joshua 82:6 it says, "And in the third month from the children of Israel's departure from Mitzrayim," which is Egypt, "on the 6th day thereof, Yahuah gave to Israel the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai." Okay, so I was kind of doing some research into the third month in the middle of the month, because it's not always going to fall on, like it did here, the third month on the 6th day of the month. That's just happens to be what it fell on the year that the 10 Commandments were given to Moshe on Mount Sinai. It's going to vary from year to year, which is why we have to count. So in as I was researching like the whole middle of the month thing, I came up with several other passages. So in Jubilees 6:15, second sidebar on Jubilees just came to me. So one of the things that 118 Ministries said when they were basically saying that they couldn't defend the book of Jubilees was they were suggesting that it adds to the word Yahuah or the Tanakh. Well, as far as I'm concerned, Jubilees and Jasher, and Enoch, and they're kind of like the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say. And so, yeah, it might seem like it's adding, but I look at it more as it's expanding. It's giving you more information. Okay, back to Jubilees 6:15. "And he gave to Noah and his sons, a sign that there should not again be a flood on the earth. He set his bow in the cloud for a sign of the eternal covenant, that there should not again be a flood on the earth to destroy it all the days of the earth. For this reason it is ordained and written on the heavenly tablets that they should celebrate the feast of Shavuot in this month once a year, to renew the covenant every year. And this whole feast was celebrated in heaven from the day of creation till the days of Noah, 26 jubilees and 5 weeks of years." Okay, so whenever it talks about weeks of years, that's a period of 7 years. That's a week of years. "And Noah and his sons observed it for 7 jubilees and 1 week of years, till the day of Noah's death. And from the day of Noah's death, his sons did away with it until the days of Abraham. Let's see. But Abraham observed it, and Yitzchak and Yaakov," so Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, "and his children observed it up to your days. And in your days the children of Israel forgot it, until ye celebrated anew on this mountain. And do you command the children of Israel to observe this feast in all their generations, for a commandment unto them. One day in the year, in this month, they shall celebrate the feast. For it is the feast of Shavuot, the feast of first fruits of the wheat harvest. This feast is twofold, and of a double nature, according to what is written and engraven concerning it, celebrate it. For I have written in the Sefer of the first Torah, in that which I have written for you, that you should celebrate it in its season, one day in a year. And I explained to you its sacrifices, that the children of Israel should remember and should celebrate it throughout their generations in this month, one day in every year." Okay, so Jubilees 14:1 says, "After these things, in the 4th year of this week," so week meaning period of 7 years, "on the new moon of the 3rd month, the word of Yahuah came to Abram in a dream." So this was before his name was changed to Abraham. Dropping down to verse 17, "And he," Abram, "awoke from his sleep, and he arose, and the sun had set, and there was a flame, and behold, A furnace was smoking, and a flame of fire passed between the pieces. And on that day, Yahuah made a covenant with Abram. Okay, so since this is in the 3rd month, and it's talking about this flame of fire. I don't know. I'm asking the question: did the covenant with Abraham, was it cut on Shavuot? I mean, it certainly sounds like it to me. And the flame of fire certainly sounds like what happened on the day of Pentecost. Okay. Jubilees 15:1 says, and in the 5th year of the 4th week of this Jubilee, which happens to be the 41st Jubilee, so that would be 50 years is a Jubilee, so times 41. So that's kind of how you can calculate where you are. And that's kind of what the book of Jubilees is all about, is giving you a history of all of the Jubilees. Okay, so in the 5th year of the 4th week of this Jubilee, in the 3rd month, so here we're in the 3rd month again, in the middle of the month, Abram celebrated the feast of first fruits of the grain harvest. Okay, chapter 16:13. And she, Sarah, bore a son in the 3rd month in the middle of the month, at the time of which Yahuah had spoken to Abraham on the feast of first fruits of the harvest. Yitzhak, Isaac, was born. Okay, so he was born on Shavuot. Amazing. I didn't know any of this. Jubilee 17:1. And in the 1st year of the 5th week, Yitzhak, Isaac, was weaned in this Jubilee. And Abraham made a great banquet in the 3rd month. On this day, his son Yitzhak was weaned. Jubilees 22:1. And it came to pass in the 1st week of the 44th Jubilee, in the 2nd year, that is, the year in which Abraham died, that Yitzhak and Ishmael, so Isaac and Ishmael, came from the well of the oath to celebrate the feast of Shavuot, that is the feast of first fruits of the harvest, to Abraham their father, and Abraham rejoiced because his 2 sons had come. Okay, so again, I mean, this is all way before the law, the Torah, was given to Moses on Sinai. Okay, so forwarding to Exodus 14:14, 3 times you shall keep a feast unto me in the year. You shall keep the feast of matzah, unleavened bread, for you shall eat matzah 7 days as I commanded you in the time appointed of the month of Aviv, for in it you came out of Mitzrayim, and none shall appear before me empty. And the feast of Shavuot, the first fruits of your labor, which you have sown in the field, and the feast of Sukkot, which is in the end of the year, which is the 7th month, when you have gathered in your labors out of the field, 3 times in the year all your males shall appear before Adonai Yahuah. Exodus 34:21. 6 days shall you work, but on the 7th day you shall rest. In earing time and in harvest you shall rest. Oh, earing time, so like ears of corn, I think. And you shall observe the feast of Shavuot, of the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the feast of Sukkot at year's end. Thrice in the year shall all your men children appear before Adonai Yahuah, the Elohim of Yisrael. For I will cast out the nations before you, and enlarge your borders, neither shall any man desire your land, when you shall go up to appear before Yahuah your Elohim thrice a year. Okay, so very important, Feast of Shavuot, one of the 3 most important ones. The menorah, which is a representation of the 7-fold spirit of Yahuah, the middle candle, or the shamash candle, is, if you look at the 7 lights representing the 7 feasts of Yahuah, the shamash candle actually is the Feast of Shavuot. So, let's see. Deuteronomy 6:9. 7 weeks shall you number unto you, beginning to number the 7 weeks from such time as you begin to put the sickle to the corn, and ye shall keep the feast of Shavuot unto Yahuah your Elohim, with a tribute of a freewill offering of your hand, which you shall give unto Yahuah your Elohim, according as Yahuah your Elohim has blessed you. And you shall rejoice before Yahuah your Elohim, you and your son and your daughter and your manservant and your maidservant, and the Leviim, which is within your gates, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow that are among you, in the place which Yahuah your Elohim has chosen to place his name there, and ye shall remember that you were a bondman in Mitzrayim, and ye shall observe and do all these statutes. So this isn't just for the quote-unquote Jews, as people refer to those dwelling in the land. This is for everybody. Feast of Yahuah, Feast of the Lord. Deuteronomy 16:16 again talks about how 3 times a year all your males shall appear. Okay, so fast forward to the New Testament, the Brit Hadashah. Acts chapter 2 says, and when the day of Shavuot was fully come, so that means we are at day 50, they were all in one accord in one place, and suddenly there came from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as of fire, and sat upon each of them, and they were all filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, and began to speak in other tongues as the Ruach gave them utterance. And just to show that the Apostle Paul, Rabbi Shaul, continued to observe the Feast of Shavuot, Acts 20:16 says, for Shaul had determined to sail by Ephesus because he would not spend the time in Asia, for he hasted, if it were possible for him, to be at Jerusalem the day of the Feast of Shavuot. And then 1 Corinthians 16:8 says, but I will tarry at Ephesus until the Feast of Shavuot. So the apostles were still celebrating this feast. And so it is not done away with, definitely still important. And we know that the moeds, the feast days, were given for signs and seasons. And we know that they are dress rehearsals for what is to come, even though they are based on things that Yahuah did in the past. Okay, so the whole idea of the Torah, the Word, coming down, and the Ruach, the Spirit, coming down, is a common theme for Shavuot. And this is interesting. In John 4:23, Yahushua says to the woman at the well, but the hour comes and now is when true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeks such to worship him. Elohim is that Ruach, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So Psalm 119:142 says, your righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and your Torah is the truth. John 17:17 says, sanctify them through your truth. Your word is truth. So if you continue to reason through the scriptures, John 14:6 says, Yahushua said unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. John 1:1 says, in the beginning was the Word, which we've established as the truth. And the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. The same was in the beginning with Elohim. Okay, and then John 1:14 says, and the Word, the truth, the Torah, was made flesh and tabernacled among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. So, the Torah, the truth, Yahushua, was given at Mount Sinai on Shavuot, and the Ruach was given on Shavuot in Acts 2. So there's got to be more to this whole spirit and truth thing, but that is what I've, based on my studies, that's what I've come up with, and that's the kind of what the whole purpose of Shavuot is pointing us to, is that it's about the Ruach and the Torah both being given to us on this day. So happy Shavuot. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, our Lord God, King of the universe. Amen.